Hello, hello, and welcome to the newest episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder. How are you, Borderline Podcast Disorderian listeners? Hope you're good. Hope you the past week has been what you wish for. I honestly do, because my week has been a bit up and down, and it's been a bit strange. I've started seeing a new therapist. I was mentioning it last week, and I've been asked to do some work about emotional regulation. Just because I was basically telling her about a couple of times in the last few weeks where I got dysregulated very quickly, and although I managed to not get to the worst possible version of me or version of what could have happened. It still happened, and it's basically yeah, we're just trying to. I got some homework that I gotta do, and yeah, we gotta see whether I can work something out and see if I can basically can get to feel better. No, that's not the word. I think it's more about, yeah, just learning to be able to deal with the avalanche of emotions in a better way, because I think yeah, so it's a pretty strange story, but the two examples that I talked with my therapist with her about, well, it was about being on a bike, and I think I just hate my bike, like the seat is all just, my bum gets sore so quickly, and then my forearms were aching as well. And while I was cycling through traffic, everything and everyone was just annoying me to the extent that I couldn't stand people. I think I really struggled to not have a go at every single, other cyclist that was just being annoying. And the drivers, people complain about, like, Londoners complain about cyclists, but I've not been in a city where I've seen worst drivers. And I come from the north of Romania, and I've been all over Romania, and I've been through so many cities in UK, not London, in UK, and yeah, it's just shocking. But anyway, that's a different story. So yeah, that's been going on. So the new uh, homework and treatment, with the new therapist, and yeah, we're getting pickle coming home in less than a month now, and I'm so excited. I can't wait. I've already devoted my life to him, and I'm making plans around his schedule. And yeah, we're gonna find out when we'll pick up his sister as well. We're just waiting on that, and we haven't decided on the name yet. So again, that's still open. If anyone's got any suggestions, let me know. I'm happy to take it on board. Now, before I introduce you to Quinn, our guest this week, I just wanted to reiterate some things I've mentioned before about what this podcast is about, basically, and the community that I'm trying to build around. It's uh, it's been brilliant so far, and I really appreciate everyone listening. And I just want to say that we are in this together. You know, the reason why I started doing this was because I felt like throughout my comedy I can't really do as much as I can to show my support and show the side of living with BPD, while I can do it through the podcast. And I hope that people who listen, whether they have BPD, whether they are just interested in this mental health in general, because again, I talk with loads of different people. I don't necessarily think that is the awareness that's needed, because obviously I think loads of people are aware. It's more about the acceptance side, accepting accepting people as they are, and creating a community around it. I want for people who listen to this to feel positive about themselves. Again, if you ever have any cool stories that you want to share, whether it's about a great use of skills or whether it's just your story, whatever it is, however it is, I will share it for you. You can either come on, or you can either record yourself doing the story, or you can just write it into a message and send me the message, and I will read it out. If you want it to be private, it will be private. If you don't want it, if you want to get a shout out, you'll get a shout out. I just want for yeah, just want for people to be together, and I want for all the borderline disorderians to feel good, I mean, as good as possible. I'm not being unrealistic. I haven't felt good since I was, maybe 5. No, I'm exaggerating. 12. I haven't felt good since then. So yeah, don't worry about it. But I feel better knowing that there are people who kind of understand me, you know, to an extent. Because ultimately, yes, we are all different, but kind of the same. Well, more or less. But I always keep talking about how wild it was when I first stepped into that, like, DBT session after I got diagnosed with borderline, or emotionally unstable personality disorder. And it was just wild to see the other people around me who I've never met before, but yet we had something in common. We all experienced some similar things. While up to that point, I always thought that I'm the only one feeling the way I feel, having all those intrusive thoughts, all whatever was happening, I just thought is in my head. Nobody can understand it. People were like, "Yeah, I understand you." No, you can't. You don't know what it's like. And then it was weird because then I'm in the room with these people, and I kind of felt like, you know what? They kind of understand me to an extent, because something brought us together. You know, we got the same thing. We got similar intrusive. We got similar thoughts. We live in a similar ways. And then, I went through the whole therapy, and I went every single week. It was more and more interesting and more strange, but like in a bizarre way where you're kind of feeling sad for yourself and still feeling sad for other people for having to go through this. But in the other hand, you're like, "Ooh, interesting. Let's see what what do they have to share? Like, what's happened with them? Like, how do they take news? How can they live without, or like, how do they live with their own overthinking?" Anyway, it was just interesting, and that's what made me want to do this. I want to share those interesting stories, and I want to make everyone who's listening feel like they are a part of it, because you kind of are. And your output is welcome, and just the fact that you're listening is brilliant, and I really appreciate you. And you got to know that. So now, because I do appreciate you, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to introduce you to this week's guest. So we got Chin on. Chin, she's a brilliant comedian, and I've been following her on social media for a while, and I, although funnily enough, now that I think about it, I don't think we've met in person before this. It was still, and I found it cool for her to say yes to taking the time to be a guest. And we've got to learn a lot about her, because she's doing great. She's doing a lot of good work, and she's getting a lot of recognition for the great work that she's doing. And on top of that, we got to get to know her a little bit better, and we talked about a lot of stuff about how she started doing comedy, and we talked about how she looks at it from a, this is a job sort of perspective, and it was really interesting. Now, on top of that, we found out that we have some comedians that we look up to, some similar names, which I guess is not that surprising. Brilliant comedians, they deserve to, and they are people who are staples of the industry. They will definitely get that recognition. And talk about community. She's running a Chinese speaking comedy night in London, and it was quite interesting because I'm Romanian. I mean, yeah, not Chinese, but Romanian, and I think speaking, doing this sort of thing, I find quite cool, right? Um, I sometimes, think more about doing comedy in Romania. And there is a massive Romanian community in UK and in London. And funnily enough, I've managed to do to open up for a brilliant comedian to a Romanian audience last week, and it was amazing. And I think the fact that Chin is doing, is organizing this night, it's quite inspiring, to get people together, people who maybe miss their countries, their, you know, friends, or anything about the place where I guess they come from, or about the language that they speak, and then they get to have to be humored, you know. That's pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, enjoy the interview, folks. Okay, Chin, hello, welcome to Borderline Podcast Disorder. How are you?
Hello, hello. Hey, I'm very good. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Have you been busy gigging this weekend, or what you been up to recently?
Yeah, very busy with gigging. Yesterday I gigged at the Top Secret, two show back to back, and the day before I gigged at Comedy Store. It's a Friday show, and yeah, the day after that, the day before that, I'm also doing this acting class in the same time. So like twice per week. So yeah, pretty packed schedule.
Oh no way! What made you get into the acting course?
So yeah, it's because my agent he found me. I don't know if like he reached out for the opportunity or like some people saw me and want me to have a self tape of some roles they have, and like about 3 or 4 months ago, I had two different roles for different project and asked me for self tape, and I tried them out. I found it's really fun, and I just want to try to see if I can be an actor. Yeah, and I found this acting class with Royal Central. It's a very good school, and I decided to give it a go. And it's really good. It's really good. I'm still in the process of taking the classes, but really enjoying it.
Nice. How long is that? Like how long is the duration of the course? I guess.
I think it's 10 weeks, and it's twice per week. It's a Tuesday and Thursday, and every session is 3 hours. So it's quite intensive. Yeah, it's like an evening class, like short course for
Mm,
adults. Yeah, just like a taster.
okay.
Yeah.
Nice, because you were saying because you were saying you had some projects last year. Is this something that you've actually ended up like um, putting out? As in like, have you been acting, or have you been like a guest in any work so far, or is it just something that you're kind of getting into as we speak?
Unfortunately, not. I didn't hear back from them. That's one of the reasons why I want to take the class. I want to see why, like, how I can improve. Like, if there are future opportunities. How
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
so yeah, that's one of the reasons I want to learn it properly, because the first time when I did my self tape, I think I did it another way around. I think all the self tape, it has to be like landscape instead of portrait, because it's for like TV and film. It's for big screen, it's not for
Yes.
phones. And I did it another way around, and when I think back, I was like, oh my god, such a rookie mistake. I should have learned and did my research back then. Yeah.
And how about when you started doing comedy? Did you do any comedy courses as well, or did you kind of just, started going to open mics or like just writing stuff down? How did it start for you, comedy wise?
I didn't take a course or anything, but I got this book. It's I think it's called getting what's it called get get getting stand up something. It's like this yellow cover with a banana on the cover. I think it's by Logan Murray, if I remember the name correct.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I read that as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a classic. Yeah, basically, but it's very like accidental. I was just like walking around the bookshop and I saw that one and I was like, okay, this one looks funny because it has a banana on top and it's about I think it's like getting into stand up comedy. It's like a very
Yeah, I think
introductory.
it is very introductory. Yes, I remember. It was one of my first books. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I read that book like from front to back and then I booked my first open mic. Yeah, basically I learned my like first like lesson of comedy through that book.
Wow. And how long ago was that?
That was I think it was 2019 from September to October. Yeah, so 4 years ago. Oh,
Wow. No
five
way.
years ago actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5 years now. Wow. Yeah, time flies. I sometimes forget. But that's amazing though. That's a very, yeah. That was what was it like for you starting before the pandemic, I guess, and then how did you keep sharp during that period where everything was closed down?
Yeah, that was a weird time to start comedy because, like, when I started, there's like rumor around the internet saying, "Oh, the UK might enter the lockdown too." But I was like, "Come on, it's the UK. Like, surely, like everything happening is back in China. Surely this won't reach us." So I was very like optimistic. But then I did my first gig, which went well, and then I used that footage of the gig, applied for another gig, which is at the stand, the Red Rock at the stand. And then they gave me a spot, but it's 5 months away. So I waited for 5 months for my first uh, open spot, like first like 5 minute spot at the stand. But the time when I get to my spot, it was the day after the lockdown. So like lockdown, and then the second day is my spot. So I waited 5 months, but it didn't even happen for me because of lockdown. Yeah,
Oh my God.
I know. I still haven't gig in Edinburgh the stand because like I moved away from Edinburgh. So like yeah.
Oh wait, is that where you started? You started in Edinburgh.
Yeah. I started in Edinburgh. I did Monkey Barrel. That's my first gig, and then I did a few gigs at Monkey Barrel and some other open mic. There's this one called Mirth Meltdown. Uh,
Oh wow.
yeah.
And what made you like move to London?
I like my company was struggling during the pandemic, and I got a new job near London. Funny enough, it's not even in London. It's near like Southend. It's 20 minutes away from Southend, but I decided to move to London.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And you took the comedy down here, which sounds amazing. Have you been doing? Have you done? I think you've done the Fringe last year, right?
Yeah. I went back to Edinburgh, did Fringe.
And was that the first time you've done the Fringe, or have you done it before?
The year before I went to the Fringe, but I didn't do like my show. I didn't do like a show. I did spots in a few like
Right.
compilation shows for a week, I think. Yeah. That was the first time I went to the Fringe as a performer. But before that, like every year when I'm living in Edinburgh, I was always like a comedy audience. Go to the cheapest
Oh,
room. Yeah, just
wow.
looking
Nice.
around.
No, it makes sense. I think you get some brilliant comedians there, every year. So it's nice to try it out. So you were I mean you were a big comedy fan then before you started, and go on.
Yeah, I guess sort of. But also, it's really strange because you know how French, all the comedians, they just like hop between spots. They would do this show and then run to another one. And because
Yeah.
I was like a student, I don't have much to do. And like I enjoyed it so much with going to like free comedy during the Fringe. And I remember there's one day I basically unintentionally followed this comedian. Like I went to three different free shows and he is there every single show. I'm like, I don't know how does comedy work. Like, and also the first time when I saw the guy, I'm like, I saw this is all like spontaneous. This is like improv. The way how like he asks people questions, and turns out he just say the same thing over and over again in different shows. That was like mind blowing for me.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, how and did you get to speak? Have you met him as a comedian after, or um, was it just like an experience where you've seen the guy and then you kind of never had the chance to catch up again? Because I'm quite curious. Like, have you spoke with him?
No, because like by that time, I I I didn't thought like you could make connection with the comedians because as an audience, I'm like that's the performer. You know, like when you see a West End performer after they went off the
Yeah.
stage, you're like, okay, this is their leisure time. We shouldn't go and talk to them to be annoying fans. So yeah, I never see that guy again. I didn't even catch his name, which is sad. All I can remember is he's this American guy and kind of young with
Oh,
glasses, but that's very generic.
that yeah. That's well, the thing is actually because I sometimes when I do shows like actually I'm the opposite. I like to go and chat with the every time I go to my like bucket list of comedians, I try to if they are in the bar, for example, after the show, I always try to at least say hi and thank them for things like that. So that's actually quite interesting. But I see what you're saying about not wanting to like disturb. And then what was it like then for you? Going and performing at Edinburgh.
Yeah, performing it's good. I think when you are like an audience, like the time when this happened, I was like a very fresh audience. I wasn't sure if they were enjoying it or not. But like now I will make sure if I see this person 3 times a day, I will make sure I go and follow their on ins and then just make friend with them because I think like we are meant to be close friend if I happen to saw you 3 times a day. But back then the mindset is different. Yeah, as a performer, I think it's really fun. It's like uh, it's like how do you describe it? It's like a boot camp for comedians because there's so
Interesting.
many opportunities and like there's so many shows and then every show is different because you always get like weird audience, nice audience, or like audience who like very raunchy and want to shout out stuff. Like it's a really good place to work out the comedy muscle and just work on materials. Yeah, but also
And
it's very stressful as well.
do you do a lot of crowd work then? Like, do you take a lot from the audience, or because I gauge that you're more of a like storyteller, right? Observational. But how much do you interact with the crowd during your
Uh,
comedy shows?
I don't really do much crowd works, but one thing I do is I observe the crowd as like a collective group, and at the like I decide what kind of material will go with them. Like when I'm
Oh,
watching them,
interesting.
like for example, like when I see like a crowd with like all young people, they probably want to hear some like more like newer references or like I can try the new references about like internet and stuff or about dating. I think they will want to hear that. And for like older audiences, like for some room it's all like for example like old British people who are like above like 50s and then they're like maybe all white and I'm like okay when I do some of my joke it might take me longer to get to them because I need to explain the background. So if I only have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, maybe this is not the best room to work these joke. I'll just use a different set of jokes.
Interesting. So you take some time to gauge the room basically before you go on stage.
Yeah, I'll adjust my material depends on how the room goes. Because I know some room, like I noticed some room, they feel very strongly about some subject. Maybe because there's a big group in the room, they somehow just like decide they don't want to hear about it. Then I'll just touch the material.
Wow. And do you sometimes, I imagine, because that's sometimes possible by, seeing the comedians, I guess, before you, right?
Yeah.
But then when you're on stage, how does it feel for you to change the direction of where you're going based on what you're getting from what you've said already?
Uh, the, I think that's because my jokes, they are written away. Like, if I tell the joke as the joke, it should work. So I shouldn't be worried about, oh, this joke might not be appropriate for this audience. So I never have these jokes. If I do, then I will make sure I don't tell these jokes. But sometimes, say, like, for example, my first joke is like a bit dirty and then they didn't receive well. I'll just, like, in my mind, I guess I have like two brains. One is the one in charge of talking, like my mouth is moving, but then on the back of my brain, it's processing, like, what should I do next? What should I do next? I should cut this one and then move this one over here. So, like, as an audience, you can see me talking, but that's me autopiloting. And at the back of my mind, I'm like actually thinking ahead. But because
Oh
all
wow.
the jokes that I'm saying online, they are so, I done them so many times. I'm autopiloting my mouth, so I'm not thinking as I'm speaking of the word I'm
How
speaking right now. I don't know if that makes sense.
how it does make a lot of sense and it sounds very interesting. How long into doing comedy did you find out this about you? Like, is it something that you had straight away where you were, because look, for example, I sometimes have to actually, I have to think about what I'm saying because I can't really go too far ahead.
Mm,
But then to you, how long did it take for you to actually see this about yourself? Because it sounds like, again, you've studied yourself, or at least like you know basically you understand your thought processes and you know the way you perform. How long did it take for you to get, like when did you first remember starting thinking like this, where you were like, oh, I'm autopiloting. However, in the back, like the other part of my brain, I guess, is just going, oh, what's next, what's next, what's next.
I don't really know. I didn't really notice. Oh, I started to do this. I didn't really have a time frame, which I clearly remember. This is the first time I started. But I think it's very important because for the first few gigs, definitely I'm not doing this because the material is so new. I need to think about the words when I speak because the material it's so new to me. My mouth is not like tied up to them. There's no like muscle being trained to say this. But after I get a bit familiar with my materials, then all I need to do is like 3, 2, 1, start and start delivering this joke. And then I can free my brain from this joke at the moment and thinking about the step in the next. So I guess it's more about how, like, I have a set of material which I feel very, very familiar to. I know the words so well by heart, so I don't need to think about them.
Wow. And how did you like? What does it feel like even now? To do comedy I guess in like a second language.
Mm, in which aspect?
For example, I'm actually about to do I think by the time this is coming out, I have done my first show to a Romanian audience in the UK because I was born in Romania and I came here, so English is like my second language as well. And basically, like, how did you? How does it feel for you? Because sometimes I go on stage and I do obviously mostly in English,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes I'm just like, oh God, okay, the writing process, I have to write I think in English, I write jokes in English.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's it like for you to what was it like for you again going through this journey of again writing and also I imagine another question to follow this is were you or like are your biggest influences in comedy or the people that you love the most comedian wise were they also like English speaking comedians?
Mm. For me, I write my stuff in English and perform in English. But if there are some content, so the original inspiration of the content is in Chinese, then I find it difficult to write a joke about it in English. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I
It
have this
does.
joke recently about how, like, on Chinese social media, there's this big trending like tag called white people meal. It's about how like Chinese people poking fun of white people's food. I first write it in Chinese
Okay.
because it's a Chinese like social phenomenon. And also because all the resources, all the things I read, and all the things I found, oh, this is stupid. How like they said this is like the original material is in Chinese. I found them kind of like difficult to translate to English. And also before I do my jokes, the setup is really long because I need to explain to the audience. Because like if I do this joke in English, then I assume my audience, they are like they don't know much about this kind of Chinese culture. So I have to explain to them. I have to explain, oh, what does this word mean, and how did it happen, and what does the word like referring to, and then do my joke. So it's a really really long setup. Yeah, I think there's way you can like I can work on my setup to make it shorter and more clear. But every time when I need to translate the culture concept, it's really struggling the process.
That's very interesting, and I like the because I see that, yeah, in my without even like I haven't thought about it this way, but sometimes when I think of something that's, oh, you would be funny culturally, or like it would be funny in Romania because this is what's coming to my head when I like this is how I basically write it. This is how I set it up.
Mm,
While yeah, usually because I write in English and everything to me it's like I'm building it up in English.
mm.
Yeah, I see what you're saying a lot. So then, yeah, coming back to the second part of the question was, who were your like biggest influences, or like who do you remember watching as a comedian and thinking, oh, they are really good?
I remember watching my first ever live comedy I watched is Daniel Sloss. I think it's back in 2014 during the Edinburgh Festival. And it was in this big theater in EICC, so the Edinburgh International Conference Center. It was this huge room, and he is Daniel Sloss, as he's very famous. So the room is like so filled up. And I remember I didn't understand a lot of his stuff because at that moment it was my second year living in the UK, and some of his reference or some of his language I didn't really like fully understand. But I really really enjoyed the joke because the vibe in the room is like a different place when you do comedy like correctly, because it's not about the wording. It's more about like the way he act out on stage, his energy, and also how how the room is like laughing together. So that's really, I was like, oh my god, this is like so great. I don't know what's going on. Like I don't know why this joke is funny, but this thing like altogether, this show is funny to me.
Wow, that's huge. I love Daniel Sloss, by the way. I think he's definitely like one of my, yeah, he's definitely British comedians wise is probably on top three.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that sounds really interesting. The thing that you were saying about it's about the energy that someone gives, or you don't necessarily have to understand everything like word by word, which I know like with accents for example, sometimes it's so complicated,
Mm.
but is the whole word behind it.
Yeah. Also,
And
another comedian, it's Kevin Bridges. Oh, they are both Scottish because I used to live in Scotland. I find his stuff like I love his stuff so much. He has this famous routine, which he was on Michael McIntyre talk show back like 20 years ago, about how he's in a bus stop in Glasgow. I watched this routine so many times because he is from Glasgow. He has the strongest Glasgow accent ever, but the way he say it is very clear and also very like he enunciates, but also he has an accent which make it super,
oh,
yeah, super funny and also super easy to get. Of course, once you know the vocabulary, like the Glaswegian vocabulary. I love his stuff so much, and he has his own rhythm. I don't know if that rhythm is like necessarily tied to his accent or tied to him as like a performer, but his rhythm just
okay.
really draw me into his stuff. Sometimes, yeah, I remember when I first watching him, I have no idea what he's saying, and I turn on the YouTube subtitle. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
It's just like all garbages like translated because it's AI generated. Yeah. But also the way he structure his sentence and the way he delivers lines are like so beautiful. Yeah.
That sounds like you got you got a lot of knowledge, um, comedy wise. It sounds, and is that how you were looking at comedy, like even before you starting doing it then?
What do you mean?
Because the way you described his work, the way you described his delivery, and like what drew you in, it sounds very, I want to say, very like professional, very well, well thought. Is that something that you basically very well articulated? If I think it's a better word to use at my end. But is that something that you've learned after starting doing comedy, or is that how you kind of saw his act even when you were just a comedy fan rather than a stand-up comedian?
That's definitely after I started doing comedy, because before, when I was audience,
Interesting.
because I watched so many bad shows during the Fringe, because like free shows, they, some of them it's like the comedians they give up. Like it's 1 a.m, they just want to go relax, but somehow some people drag them into a gig. So like it's so bad sometimes. I used to sing like stand up comedy, like especially the stand up comedy during the Fringe. The free ones, they are just some people giving out some shocking information about like anal sex, about like incest. Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh my, that's and wait. So last year, I imagine you haven't done the free fringe then?
I did the free Fringe. Yeah. Ironically, yes. I became one of the.
No, well, I think yeah, that I mean that's a good start. But I think it was just hilarious. And also, wait, so you went to comedy shows at like 1 in the morning?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a huge commitment,
Well, it's more
and that
because they are free, and then there are so many. So as a student who doesn't have money and doesn't want to travel far, like that's your best like free entertainment.
of course, yeah, no, it makes sense, but it sounds incredible because I don't know. Sometimes I hear of like Las Vegas comedians
Mm,
or like Atlanta comedians as well, where they have comedy shows at like 3 or 4 in the morning.
mm.
And to me, that was like such a bizarre, concept of, people going, oh yeah, you just do comedy on basically you just like say stuff on a microphone in front of like three drunk people, or sometimes I think there was I think God, I forgot his first name. Wallace is a brilliant comedian, but he was saying that sometimes he would have like people sleeping, and he would see them clearly that they were just wiped out completely.
Oh gosh,
But he
yeah,
would still do his work. He would still like do his set, and he would still, and to me that's just, yeah, just incredible.
yeah. I think once I had someone, because it was like raining outside or something, and they're like so drunk, so they just want to have somewhere to sit down. They're like, and they sit on the front row. They sit down on the front row and just started having a nap.
Oh my God! Is that a show you were watching as a basically you were watching, right? You weren't
No,
performing.
I was performing. That's why I
Oh
saw
my
them.
God!
I'm like, is this guy dead or something? Like he just like sitting there with his head down.
Oh, God. Well, yeah. Well, so was that 2 years ago then when you were guest performing?
I think it was either 2 years ago in Edinburgh. Yeah, it must be 2 years ago in Edinburgh. One of the, or or is it last year in Edinburgh? Can't remember. One of the time when I performed in Edinburgh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, how did you? Because obviously, like now you're London based, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing a Chinese comedy night in London.
Mm-hmm.
How did you like build that up, or what made you uh, want to do that?
I guess it's because stand-up comedy. It's it's like, do we have, what's the word for it? Uh what's the word for it? You know how like when you describe think about there's this spot, a place, it's very windy. So if you stand on the spot when it's very windy, you'll just fly off.
It's not like populated.
Not quite. It's more like, so basically in China there's this online like a TV show, not quite a TV show, like a reality show. Basically there's this online like TV show, online show about like stand-up comedy. It's like this company, he put on this show, and then it's people doing competitions of stand-up comedies, and that show gets so popular. And now suddenly
Right.
in China there's so many like different clubs. And that was the time when I moved to London, and I noticed how London doesn't have one. And also like London, like the demographic of Chinese people living in London is basically like young people, university students and young professionals. They are all very like, they all watch the show. I'm like, if we start, then this is the first time. If we don't start, then somebody will start. And also I think we really need one, because I used to do debating back in uni, and I know a lot of people who just
Ah,
really love like the art of language, and who just like love to be on stage. But in London, we don't really have such a like a opportunity to do like comedy work on stage, because in London we have like theater and stuff, but in Chinese we don't have like the comedy stage. So yeah, I just decided to start
right.
one.
That's amazing. And it's still, how often do you do it?
Quite often, and I used to have a regular venue. When I have the venue, I do it twice, sometimes 3 times a week.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and sometimes some week I can manage to fill up every single show of the room. Even the open mics get like 30 people in, and yeah, it's really good. But now I don't have the venue anymore because the restaurant shut down. I'm working with different venues, so I need to switch in between. So at the moment, it's about
Right.
once per week, but also we have like bigger shows, like once per month show at bigger venue at like 21 Soho. And this month we have like a competition for like Chinese comedy in a UK competition. And then the final is in Top Secret. So
Oh, that's really, wow.
yeah, last year it was at 21 Soho, and it was 200-seat theater, but it was so packed. Like it's almost
No way.
like
Wow.
a like a hazard how packed it was. Yeah. But also I think it's because last year it was the year when Chinese people living in the UK, they can't really fly back to China because of the
Oh, yeah, because there were
restrictions.
still restrictions. Yeah.
Yes. So they are here and they don't have much to do. So they come to comedy. But now they have more options to travel around the world to go back to China. So this year is not as good as last year.
Ah, okay. That's interesting. And it's a, I think it's a wonderful either way, because yeah, I don't think there are any, unless Romanian, like popular Romanian comedians would come to London and do comedy, or like come to UK and do comedy shows in UK.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's such a thing as like a regular um, foreign speaking comedy night for Romanian people. So that's why I was just curious, because I've
Mm-hmm.
never been a part of one. In April, I've got my first one booked,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm quite nervous, because I mean, the thing is, luckily I'm a storyteller, so I feel like there are some stories that I can think of and try to do in Romanian. But then, what was it like for you to do comedy in Chinese, right on the
Oh,
night?
it's hard. It's hard. Like some jokes, just can't like translate them word by word. It just doesn't work.
Mm,
Also, the context is so hard because a lot of my English joke it's built in the context of like we living in a society, the British society, but
yeah.
like Chinese students, they are living in here but not quite in here, so they don't get some of the reference I'm talking about. So I can't really translate word to word. And also if you do, it sounds really strange. Like I remember once I did this set, I translated it, and then one of my friends gave me a feedback, said you sounds like those old movies, like those old Western movies when they first introduced to China. they have this weird Chinese, but also not very Chinese voiceover. It's really unnatural. And if the audience, they feel a bit unnatural, they just don't laugh. They're like trying to correct your sentence and trying to process the language. Yeah. I guess like, yeah. And then after a while, I decided to start like writing jokes organically in Chinese, even though it's the same premise.
Interesting.
But because I write it organically in Chinese, it flows a bit better. So I think, yeah, but it's a muscle you need to work on. But also, I think the premise can work in both language, given that both language have the cultural context. But the wording is it's so important in comedy.
It does, yes. I
Yeah.
think it's probably most of the to get that like punchline to it's wording is such an important part. But then you were saying that it's a muscle that you need to build. Obviously, you're building it up, and we're doing we are you're putting all those shows together. But then writing wise, what's your like um, writing process again without giving too much information away, but like are you the kind of person who writes has to write daily, or do you just take say a day of the week when you do your writing? Because I spoke with different with other comedians, for example, I think on the episode with Ali Woods, and he was saying that sometimes he likes to do a little bit of work almost every day. And for example, I write at least like 10 ideas a day. Even if it's something like really short, or if it can be like this morning, I spent I think like almost 20 minutes writing something about like my upstairs neighbors. But yeah, it depends, but that's like how I do it. How about you? Like how do you build the muscle, or how do you keep the muscle sharp?
Well, I feel like I should write every day, but it's a very hard habit to keep. I think so far, most of my material are written before open mic shows, especially new material shows. If I know I need to, I have 5 minutes, and this is the time for me to work on my new stuff. I have some ideas, but they haven't been turned into joke yet. And before I went on the stage, I'll start to construct some sentences. Yeah, it's a procrastination, and also, yeah, more
That
like
sounds really
pressure.
interesting. I think again, some people work really well like that, right? Some people like to know like, oh, there's a deadline tomorrow night. You're doing a 5 minute at an open mic. You got to make sure that you've got new material to try. So
Yeah, I guess so. But also, I wish I
wow.
have like a regular writing habit where I can write more stuff. But something I found is like when I sit down and write, what I'm writing is like way too formal. It's more like written English. It's not like spoken English. So when I speak out loud, it doesn't sound like my natural rhythm. So
Okay.
yeah. And also another thing I did is like when I'm doing out stuff, like chatting with friends or just like on the tube, and I thought about some interesting idea, I'll note down on my notebook. And then after that, I revisit them and then try to write them into proper sentences.
Also, do you now? Interestingly enough, because you mentioned writing it on a notebook if you see something with your mates. So, do you carry a notebook with you?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, at least one. Um, Interesting. Yeah, because that's what I meant about like my thought process as well. Like sometimes if I have like say I'm in my day job, or if I'm doing bits and I don't have time to actually focus, I would just like write it on my notes. I just like oh, I thought of this, and then when I sit down, I put it in words, or I just again extend it. But what was it like doing the work for the Wang Republic? Right, that's your show.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had it, I think, a couple of weeks ago at the Soho Theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was it? How long have you been? How long have you been doing it for, and how's it been so far?
Yeah, it's been good so far. I started this comedy show for last year's Fringe. It's aimed to be like a working process for last year's Fringe, and I did a 7 days run in there. It was really good. I think it's really helpful because like writing a joke and writing a show is like it's so different. So that this is my first time trying to write a show. So it's a very challenging show, but also it's very rewarding when I get it right. And this it's something I did stupid when I book my Edinburgh Fringe venue. I have a brief idea about how like my show will be about, but also I don't have like I have like only 30% stuff ready for the show. And they give me a venue. The venue look like an airplane. It's basically like a mock-up airplane, which is really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is kind of like perfect for my show because the theme of my show it's like international-ish. So I decided to write the first version of my show based on the venue of an airplane. And I was like so
Yeah.
proud at the time. I'm like, oh my God, the audience, they will have a so immersive experience when they walk in my show. And I'll like dress up as air hostess and then I'll have like the boarding announcement and all that. So during Edinburgh, I really enjoyed playing it because it's almost like a cosplay. And then I'll do my comedy set as like the inboard entertainment. I'll be like, oh, this is your captain speaking. Now let's welcome our inboard live entertainment, our comedian, Chin Wang. It's like a wrapped up version of my club set. And the thing about that is I really enjoyed it back in Edinburgh playing with that venue. And also I think it really helped me the 7 days wrong. But also when I move it outside from Edinburgh, the show just doesn't work. Like nobody like it's just like a regular venue, but I'm pretending it's an airplane. And after a while, people just like forgot, oh, we're on an airplane. So when I refer back to how like, oh, we're flying, we're on an airplane. So the audience is like, what? Oh, yeah. And I did a work in progress in London. It's like almost cringe how like I have to pretend it's an airplane.
Oh God.
Yeah, so I decided to rewrite the show because I applied for the Soho Rising Festival and I got admitted. So I have to make this show better, at least when it's being played in the Soho. So I rewrite the show, and I'm like this time I'm more focusing on what I want to do in the show instead of like the venue setup, because it's such a stupid
Of
idea if I
course.
think about to write a show because you have a venue. Normally they write a show and find a venue that fit for the show. So what I did is really like another way around. Yeah.
I mean, I think it depends because the way you treated that sounds really incredible, and it's like you said, it was nice um, to try it. I always think about. Do you know? Have you heard of a band called Flight Facilities?
I think so. Flight.
They are the flight. They're like basically it's like I think there is not necessarily a band. They are DJs from Australia,
Okay.
and they have this. Is one of my favorite albums. It's Flight Facilities and the Melbourne Orchestra, and it's literally that. Like they had basically they had like a rave, in a warehouse, say. It wasn't even a warehouse. It was actually a theater where they played with the Melbourne Orchestra, and the whole journey, like from the start, it's as if you are in an airport.
Mm.
And that's exactly because what you said, it sounded a lot like when I've listened to their album, which it's one of my favorite albums. Usually when I do, for example, like if I edit the podcast or if I do some stuff where I want to have like some background music, that's one of my go-to albums. So I'd say, like, yeah, check it out. But I think it was incredible because they had this like attention, everyone like fasten your seatbelts because we're getting going, and and at the end it was quite incredible because they had the bit where they were like, you flew with Flight Facilities. I hope you enjoyed your ride today.
Ah.
And it was quite interesting. So I see, and again, it's captivating.
What's the album called?
2 seconds. Let me find it for you.
I saw their page on Spotify. It looks really cool.
So the album that I'm referring to, it's actually called Live with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra.
Wow. Live.
It's from 2015.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, and that's when you were saying about the experience that you were trying to say. That's all. Like that's what I was thinking about in the background. I was like, oh God, this sounds like like the album, where you take it. So I see what you're saying though. It's harder when you have to change venues, and like how do you keep it all together? How do you keep things relevant? Do you use any props during doing your obviously you did mention the hostess, like uniform, or like flight attendant uniform and things like that, but is there anything else that you use during the show, or is it usually just like you and a mic and that's it?
Oh yeah, I'm so prop heavy for at least for the first version. So the first version I have me, the air hostess costume, and then I have two, like how like the screen you get when you are boarding. So I have two of
Yes.
them. One is like, oh, ready to board. Another is waiting for boarding. That's basically like my pre-show thing. Like I stick it
Oh
on
wow.
top on the door when people are waiting. And then I have like slides in my show. So but the venue doesn't have like a screen. So I brought my own uh like a vintage pull up kind of like projector screen.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
And also I have fortune cookies. I gave away fortune cookies. I have this line like, oh, in case of emergency, you can find a packet of fortune cookies just beneath your seat. And I actually gave out fortune cookies as a part of the show. Um, what else I have? Oh, and then for the Soho version of the show, I don't have the air hostess, but I still have the slides and I have the fortune cookies. So I have a laptop on stage with me, and then the projector and stuff. I have fortune cookies, and also I have a packet of chicken feet, which I use as a part of the joke, like joking about how like the food, how like Western people make fun of Chinese people eat everything, and I will give the chicken feet to a random audience and say, "Oh, this is our republic, and if any intruders are in, you can throw this pack of chicken feet into them because that will scare them off. So this is our like weapon to defend ourselves." Yeah, it's a really
Oh my
prop heavy
God.
show.
Wow. How that sounds amazing. So you basically you have to buy all these, like, or do you have like a fortune cookie supply and a chicken feet supply, or do you buy them before each?
Not at all. I just
Um,
go to Chinese supermarkets and get them. That's why it's very high production cost show, and I don't think I make enough money.
do you have to put the do you have to, like, when you basically when you fly it, or when you do the posters, do you put, like, um, in the cost of the ticket you have entertainment and snacks?
I should. Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, because I was thinking actually, when you were saying the thing about the slides, I don't know, have you seen Jude Apatow's special?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Because he's got basically in his special, where he shows pictures of, like, I think again, I can't remember, I've seen it so long ago, but I just thought the whole idea of him getting like a tiny projector and having to, like, show stuff on the stage,
Mm.
I just found it hilarious, just as it is, regardless of what's on the projector, or like whatever you get to see, because he had like a teacher's, like the stick
Mm.
that they used to point at stuff,
Mm.
and it'd be like, oh yeah, so as you can see in this picture, and I find the whole, yeah, props are, I find them fascinating, because I'm very much, yeah, just go on. I have my notebook, and that's pretty much it. I think I tried at some point to do props.
Mm-hmm.
I had a joke about the like, it was something to do like with royal family, and I had like a tie, and I was saying, oh, when I put the tie on, I'm now King Charles, and I lost the tie after like 2 weeks, and that's it. I gave up on.
Oh.
That's when I gave up on props. I was like, yeah, I think that's me done now.
No. Get a new tie.
Well, we'll see. Again, at the moment, I don't think. I think actually the last time when I did it was on the Queen's coronation weekend, and
Oh.
I got heckled. Yeah, I got heckled for it because it was actually quite funny.
Mm.
I ended up turning into a whole bit where he was like, "Oh, you can't do that. It's the Queen's birthday," and I was like, "It's not. The coronation is not her birthday."
Mm.
And it was actually funny because I ended up, I think, taking 5 minutes of the set, which again, it was only a 15-minute set, which is coincidentally, I think my third or fourth paid gig.
Mm.
And I ended up going away from my routine to actually just have a back and forth with this person on in the audience who was like, "Oh, you can't do that on the Queen's birthday," and I was like, "It's not her birthday; it's the coronation.
Mm.
That's not her birthday." And then we just had like she was like, "No, it's a birthday," and I was like, "No, it's not the birthday." And I remembered like taking my phone out and going like, "You see, it's not the birthday," and yeah, it was quite funny. It was actually, now that I thought this is the first time after in a very long time when I thought about it, I might bring it back now.
Yeah, that sounds really funny. And you get to do it. Oh, you get to do the king's coronation now every year.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how he
If he,
goes.
let's hope that it. I mean, again, I'm not a royalist, but I'm also not against it. I have no opinion, to be honest. But let's hope he's going to be around, and then we can see whether he's got
I
the
mean, no matter
coronation or
who is
not.
the king or the queen, there will be a coronation.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very valid point. Yeah, whoever. Yeah, the show must go on. It's like one of those. Like a rock and roll festival. Oh, but yeah. So obviously you've got we. I really enjoyed the conversation, and you were saying that obviously you had the Wang Republic at the Soho Theater. Have you got any other dates that are booked in for the spring or the summer, or are you planning to take either this show or are you taking something else to Edinburgh this year? What does your schedule look like?
At the moment, I don't have any future dates pending, but I'm doing a few festivals. I'm doing Brighton Festival, which I'm still doing the admin for it, and I will be doing Edinburgh. Very likely I will bring Once Republic to Edinburgh to do a full run, but still I'm working on how to make it happen. And apart from that, what other festival? I applied for a few like Durham Festival and all that. And also I'm doing the Women in Comedy Festival in Manchester if they take me. So yeah, all these are all in like application or still in the process of of confirming. But yeah, you will see me around in a lot of festivals.
And now, obviously, you mentioned the comedy. Again, you mentioned like you got a lot of work that still needs to be confirmed, like again, festival wise and like admin work.
Mm-hmm.
If people want to, if our listeners want to, be updated, where do they find you? What's your social media?
Yeah, find me on social media. Find me on Instagram. It's Chin Wang Chin. So Chin like your Chin Wang like your Wang, and then Chin QIN. And find me on my personal website chinwangcomedy.com. I should be updating all the gig list on my website.
Nice. Well, I'll get those down when I do the final editing for the episode, and there will be the link in the bio of the episode for everyone listening. And it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Chin, and I hope to chat with you again soon. Good luck with I heard wonderful things about the Woman in Comedy in Manchester.
Yeah.
I think it's such a great festival, and loads of my friends and like people who I've been gigging with have done it and absolutely loved it. So good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
And good luck with everything else. Good luck with the Brighton. I think I'm going to do some guest spots in Brighton this year. Edinburgh, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I'm sure our paths will cross at some point.
Yes.
Lovely chatting with you. Now, is
Lovely
there anything
chatting
else
to you
you
too.
wanted to say before we depart? Before we land, I guess before we land is the word.
Not really. Just give me a follow on social media. If you see me doing any shows, come to see me. Yeah, would be love to meet our listeners. And yeah, keep listening to podcasts and keep having a lovely life.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye for now.
Okay, bye bye.
How was it? Was it good? I hope so. I had a good time doing it. So I hope you enjoyed listening. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe, share this with your friends if you really enjoyed it. Also, check out Chin's socials and what else? What else? Send us your stories. Again, if you want to be featured in the podcast. If not, don't worry, just keep listening. That's still good. I really appreciate you either way. Thank you and goodbye. Talk to you soon. Stay skillful.